What's up, Buttercup? Welcome back to my channel. Today's book review is The Women of Chateau Lafayette by Stephanie Dray. I am going to make a disclaimer before we even jump in. My French is bad. My English is bad, even though English is my native language. So I do want to admit that though I am French, yes, I am. Actually, my last name's French. I didn't know that until someone had to tell me. But even though I'm French and, I have a French last name and all of that, I can barely speak English. I can't pronounce French words very well. So this might be slightly embarrassing. However, I think this was a great book, and that's why we're here today. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, and I'll definitely tell you why I didn't give it 5 out of 5 stars, because all of Stephanie's other books are 5 out of 5 stars. Love her books. But let's jump into the summary, and actually I'm going to read the back of this book because I think it's very well done, because we follow 3 women, and honestly, if they didn't set it up in this way, the summary would be a hot mess. Nestled in the mountains, Chateau Lafayette has seen revolution, survived 2 wars, and harbored more than 25,000 sick and orphan children. It's a fortress, a haven, the strength of which is in not its stone, but the courage and ideals of those who live there. A founding mother, 1774, Adrienne Lafayette, as defiant as her hero husband, the Marquis de Lafayette, faces the threat of the guillotine and makes a fateful decision that will inspire generations to come. A daring visionary, 1914, Beatrice Chandler is an indomitable socialite with a secret identity who risks everything to save people a world away, forever changing America's destiny. A reluctant resistor, 1940, Martha Simone, a French school teacher and aspiring artist, simply wants to survive Nazi occupation until a shocking discovery calls into question who she is and who she's willing to become. Getting into the good things that I like, all of these women, fantastic. Great writing. I enjoyed all of them. I do say that I enjoyed Beatrice's parts the most, and then Adrienne, and then Martha. And I think that's because Martha is actually fictional. She's not real. And I've heard of Adrienne, and I've heard of Beatrice. Didn't know much about them, because there's more about Adrienne out there than Beatrice. Beatrice, as I read in the author's note, Stephanie had to do a lot of work, because she was a bit outshined over the years by her husband, who she was estranged with, but they are a very old money, big family. So the wives, after a time, kind of get pushed aside. Of course, yes, thank you. But Beatrice did amazing things in World War I and in World War II, and she died a few years after the end of World War II, if I remember correctly. And she died of a heart attack on a train. Oh, horrible way to go. She was absolutely amazing. Adrienne Lafayette was absolutely amazing as well. And so I think that's why I prefer those 2 over Martha, who was made up. And this is where I'm going to give it 4 out of 5 stars. I think the font is really small, and it's almost 600 pages. I'm surprised they didn't offer it only in hardcover, because this could easily tear. There's that many pages in there. And I think that even Martha deserves their own books. I think this would have been a great trilogy if she wanted to make a trilogy, or just standalones. I don't think it would have mattered if it was standalones or a trilogy or anything like that, but I think that it would have been much better if we followed each character individually, and if that meant that the book was only like 300 or 400 pages versus a tome, I think I would have given 5 stars. But there was just too much information that was missing, and then there was lots of going back and forth, which I don't particularly like, but I will accept it for this novel because Stephanie writes very well. She has fantastic prose, and her research is amazing. But I wanted to learn more about each individual woman and more on their backstory, especially their childhood. Now, would that be a little more fiction versus historical? Probably. And then it would just be made up for Martha. But I still think that that would have been better than putting all 3 in a big book. And I think their motivations and their personalities and, you know, things like that would be more fleshed out, especially for Martha, because there were some times where I was questioning her and her motives and her thought process and her beliefs. It got better as her chapters went on, but in the beginning I was a little confused with Martha, and that could be possibly because she's made up. I'm not sure. And against Beatrice and Adrian, who has very clear motives, even though they're in very difficult situations. They're both in wars. Well, yeah. Adrian is part of the American Revolutionary War, and then the multiple French revolutions with her husband. And then Beatrice is part of World War I and World War II. So they have revolutions, wars going on, and they are historically accurate in what they did, versus Martha, you kind of have to pull from other places of the motives and what she could possibly do as an orphan, and a poor orphan who grew up at the chateau. And how are you going to build on her connection to Adrian and Beatrice? And in the end, I think that was also lacking a little bit, because it, like, her part where it says a shocking discovery, it doesn't actually become shocking discovery. Like, Stephanie teases it and then it doesn't happen. So that's slightly misleading as well. I would have enjoyed the book if we followed another real life person. There are quite a few real life, historically accurate and strong women that are connected to the chateau. So I read the author's note. It's really long, but I read the author's note, and I understand where Stephanie came from with making up a character, but then again, I do lean a little bit more on the you could have just followed Adrian and Beatrice, or you split them up into 3 books, or you follow a third real life woman during World War II specifically. But I loved all the characters. I loved the side characters. The description was chef's kiss, and she is great at descriptions, especially describing feelings and the situation around those feelings that the characters are dealing with. Even side characters, she's very great at that. And what I did appreciate were the interactions between the love interest, or the husbands or fiancés, or, you know, the male love interest characters, I should have said. That made it shorter and sounded better, but, you know, okay, we're I like to make things complicated for myself a little bit sometimes, because they were realistic. There was a little romance in there, of course. Some things are romantic, but especially when you're going through war. I don't want to see things portrayed as everything's going well. You would, in a way, portray it for young kids or even teenagers, but to say that nothing is happening and our relationship is perfect and there's no strain whatsoever, especially when we're both part of the war effort, not realistic. There's high stress, extreme stress, actually, because with all three of these women who have these love interests, both of them are involved in some form or another. Lafayette is really involved. So Adrian's, I would say, the most stressed out, and then Beatrice, and then Martha. But still, like, they're all involved. And they are very focused on helping each other, helping everyone around them, helping the war effort. So we're not having like weird romantic or flirty banter for like 10 pages in the middle of like trying to save children, because I've read that before and it's just stupid. I'm sorry. Like, could that happen? Sure. But there is a sense of, I would say, not importance when you do that. And I think that focusing on the sick children or hiding the children from Nazis in the chateau's basement, or helping your husband who is now addicted to morphine and alcohol and having to decide what do you do with that, because you're also running the chateau and you're trying to save as many children and women and men, just you're trying to save everyone as possible. And then, you know, with Adrian, so much is happening with her. They're going through the French Revolution. There's more things that are important that you deal with as a family and then as a couple. And I like that there are light moments. Of course, there's light moments, but really when you are on the front line as much as you can as a woman, and then you see your love interest, fiance, husband, actually on the front line, you're not really bantering, or you're not really fighting over stupid things, or going to a romantic movie and dinner on the gardens of the chateau, because you don't have that luxury. There's no luxuries. Even if you're rich, you don't have that. You have a little more. Yes, you do. But you don't have that luxury because you don't know if you're going to get bombed. So you're not going to sit outside and make out. I probably have seen and read one too many silly historical fiction books and films, because that is a pet peeve of mine. Have you noticed? Okay. But I like the realism, so it was very refreshing to read Stephanie Dray going towards the, we're going to make this realistic, and that's going to mean depressing. That's going to mean hard. That's going to mean violent, very violent. But that's what revolution and war is made of. It's not easy. It's not fun. I'm sure it's fun for some, psychopaths, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about all the real life people that went through all these wars. It wasn't ideal. And that's a word that makes it a little simple, but it was not ideal. Did they believe in their side? They did. But it was still hard. And it was still difficult to manage your everyday life, and you see everyday life stuff as well. Not like I'm going to the bathroom, but having to spend time with your children when bombings are happening, and what do you say and do with that situation? Realistic things that revolve around war is very much shown in this novel. And that's why I love Stephanie Dray. She writes it like it is, whether that's popular or not. Thank you so much for watching my book review. I'll see you in the next one. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.